Want to Be an Assessor.
Hello and welcome. I am Mei Beth Shepherd, one of the hosts of the So You Want to Be an Assessor podcast, and we are very excited to be back and glad to have you with us.
And I'm your other co-host. I'm Kaitlyn Reeder, and this week should be interesting. We maybe figured out technology? Unsure.
Well, I don't know. It only took us 32 minutes. So, Kaitlyn, what have you been up to?
This week I've been doing a lot of data validation.
Ooh.
Yeah. I'm sure you have been as well, because that's a project we work on together.
That's true. That's true. That's completely separate from the assessing bit, except that it does give us good information for helping us be better assessors, because we're looking at data, which is also something part of laboratories.
That is very true. And I really enjoy looking through all of the actual test results and the quality and all of those things, because it's fun to see, one, different ways that labs accomplish the same goal, and two, to see everything that we look at when we go into like a laboratory kind of come to like a fruition, because like this is the product, you know? So like seeing the final product and using it is always kind of a good feeling.
Yeah, it's like you do get to an end result. There is some good, there's a final product. We did this for a reason. Well, and thinking about that, the laboratories are like, dang it, I have to write everything down. Why do I have to write so much down? But as a data validator, we're reading everything and we're going, how did you get this number? Is this number right? You know, and we need all of that information because we're looking at level 4 reports most of the time, which means that we are looking at your raw data. And so, yeah, I know and expect all of the stuff. So yeah, it's a lot, but it does get used. So good news.
And how about you? What have you been up to?
Well, this past week I went to the NEMC meeting and got to see lots of people, tell lots of people about this podcast, but also just to network with people and communicate and see how they're doing, how labs are going. Also, T&I meetings were happening at the same time as the NEMC meetings, and so got to hear a few things. The standard new version doesn't have a name yet, so we don't know when it's going to be released, but there is work being done. Oh, and I found out something today, a follow-up meeting from that the standard methods, and probably other people know this and I don't or didn't, but they have something similar to the standard interpretation request process that we know about for T&I. They call it erratas. We use standard methods online, and so we can get to the erratas, etc. So that's a process that can happen much faster than putting a new version out. And so I hear rumor that people that are working on the 9000 series are wanting to put out an errata to take a lot of the prescriptiveness out of the 24th edition before the end of the year.
I would love that.
You, me, all of us.
Life changing, honestly.
I know. I was like, really, we could do it quickly, like quicker than the 5 years that it doesn't take 5 years. Standard method's gotten a little bit better, but 2 or 3 years, and it's going to be great. So I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, that's fantastic news.
Yes. Yeah,
I'm sorry I missed it this year. I was
I
really hoping
know.
to get there, but life had other plans.
Sometimes life does that for everybody. As assessors, that's one of the things that we have to be flexible. We and we Mike and I this week heard from some of his family, and we were thinking we needed to go over there this weekend, but he's already going to an assessment or two, and so we were trying to figure out, plans B, C, and D on how we can make this work. Who can we call to cover the assessments? To do whatever we need to do. It turns out we're not going to go there this weekend, so we're back to Plan A.
Well, I'm glad to hear there is no emergency travel needed.
Exactly.
That's always good news.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, switching topics, just slightly getting into kind of what I wanted to talk about today. And this is probably like the second most asked question, right behind what sort of training do you need to be an assessor? It's, have you ever closed a lab?
It's a great question. And the technical answer is no, because we don't close labs. We're third-party assessors. We don't have the authority to close laboratories. Have we recommended laboratories be closed and their certifications been pulled by the accreditation bodies? Yes, that has happened. And we're all happy that can happen because, labs are not necessarily in competition with other labs. The commercial labs, of course, are, but wastewater labs, drinking water labs are, in competition with the city next door. No, not really. It's like they're making sure that their product, drinking water, wastewater, is good enough for the city or the county or region, whatever. So it's not really a competition, but we do on occasion recommend that a lab be closed or severely limited in the testing that they do. And when we do that, it is not something that's done or taken lightly. You pretty much, laboratories have to prove their incompetence to, and unfortunately, some of them are really good at that. So it's not what we want, but when they haven't read the methods or the standards and think that all they have to do is, I'll pick on the shake and bake test. All I have to do is take this sample and add a little something to it and shake it up and heat it up for a little while. It's all I have to do, and that's sad because that's drinking water, and we really don't want like another Flint, Michigan. And so if laboratories are not showing their competence, then they should be taken out of the system. And so that's our job. That's what we do. What about you? I think you've been involved in a few.
Oh my gosh, I just had my first, first one that I was kind of an active participant in. I think I was in one with y'all as an intern. But that was I want to say like a non-English speaking lab, but it was definitely a second language laboratory, which can be good. But, when you're telling someone to go and make the quality manual in the other language because you don't have it written up and I can understand said language, that's a problem.
Yes, yes. Other language, I'm not quite tech savvy enough to figure out Google Translate, but when I was shopping for earbuds, and there are some that do translations automatically.
Whoa, the
And
future is
so
now.
I know the little communicators. You don't even have to have it on your shirt.
Oh, Star Trek.
Yeah, we're Star Trek. We could do that. And just have it automatically translate. I've considered doing that. When I go and get my nails done, because they're all speaking Korean, I think. But then again, I don't know if I want to know what they have to say about me.
Yeah, I'd rather just believe that you have beautiful eyes. Thank you.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. So yeah, that it's not a fun topic, but closing labs or recommending that labs be closed is literally what we do. There's been a few labs that we have been in. One of the ways that we have been known to assess labs is a company is considering purchasing a lab, and so they will have us go and do an assessment of them to see what are their strengths and weaknesses, and if they buy them, so that they will know what's up or what. So it's just another. It's not an accreditation body that we're working for in that case. It's a company that's going to buy the lab, and so we give them a report. Say they're a good lab, they're not a good lab, they have this weakness, they have the, whatever. It's the same sort of thing that we do for accreditation bodies. It's just a different outcome. And in some of those cases, they've said, you know what, there's too much to clean up at that lab. Don't want to mess with it. And then there's other times when they've said, okay, that's doable. We can fix this or this. And, and so they at least have an understanding of how deep is the hole or how good they are. If when they're a good lab, they're a good lab. And just because the owner changes doesn't mean that it'll all fall apart. It might, but that's their fault if it does.
Right. That comes down to business tactics, and that part we don't touch.
Right. No, some of the conference meetings that were happening last week I loved a lot of the conference discussion was about, you know what, if you're worried about customer satisfaction, your customer, whether it be the wastewater plant or the water plant or another lab that you're doing subcontracting for, that people off the street, sending, whatever, when you're customer focused, you are way better off and you're doing a much better job than when you're focused on the money or focused on some other aspect. And part of that, like, there have been times when people are very, very technical in our field. I mean, we smart people tend to be scientists, and for instance, I'm not dissing everybody else, but just saying. But
if you're good at math, we need you, I think is what she means.
That is not a lie. But sometimes your really good scientists want to do perfect science, which first off doesn't exist, right? We're in a world that nothing's perfect. And so that's really hard to get there. And so they spend a lot of time and resources for perfect when, 80-90% of the way there is all your customer needs or what your customer needs and gets them what they want, what they need. And so, you have to know where to draw that line, because otherwise you can spend time, money, resources, everything, and to get the number 4, and it's a great number 4, but the client doesn't want to pay you $1,000 for the number 4. Like that's,
Right.
I'd be okay with the number 3.5 to 4.5 and get it for $50, or whatever. I'm making up numbers. I don't do the business aspect of laboratories. So
Close is fine for most people's uses.
yeah. And in the radiochemistry world, all numbers are reported with uncertainty. They're all reported with a plus or minus. And so I think those are truer numbers, because we don't like to report uncertainty in the chemistry world. And it just, we all look at it and go, oh, you are being so needy. But the reality is, any result you get from any analytical process is an estimate. It is a maybe number. It's somewhere around this. It's a bell curve number. Somewhere in the bell curve is a likely number that that's what's in here. And so when we report it as a 3 or a 4, then non-scientists, the general public, look at that and go, it's a 3. 3's bad, or 3's great.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is, it's probably somewhere between 2.5 and 3.5, or but on one hand, I wish we would report with the uncertainty. On the other hand, I'm like, oh my gosh, people would not get it there either.
Yes, the chemistry uncertainties, totally cool with. The micro and the whole effluent toxicity uncertainties, that's a whole different ball game, because you're dealing then with living creatures. So you're like, how can I have half of a bug? How can I have half of a fish? How can I have half of these things? Well, it's because we're not necessarily how many were there to start, we're there to end. We can count them, but babies and deaths and all of those sorts of extreme things, the life that happens, makes that uncertainty margin just huge. And it looks so scary if you were to put it on a report.
Well, yeah, and the whole, and it's math. As you mentioned, we need mathematicians. We need people that can do math. But statistics is what we're talking about here, and that's how you get to an uncertainty, is using statistics to say, all right, it's probably somewhere around here. And so you need to know and understand that. But that's probably why chemists don't worry about it.
Maybe.
Well, the reality is, the uncertainty that's happening with chemistry is outside the laboratory's control. The vast majority of it. There is some uncertainty, of course, that is happening in the laboratory. Your standard may not be as good as it was when you first bought it, or something, but it's also could be uncertain where the sample was taken. Or, soil samples are always amusing to me. Got a 20-acre field. How large is your acreage? Y'all got 10, right?
Acre wise, we have technically 2.5.
2.5.
Yeah.
But okay, so even there, you can take maybe 5 samples, or because you can't take one every other inch, so you're only taking small bits of that 2.5 acres, and then you get it to the laboratory and you use 20 grams, maybe. So you take a little 4-ounce jar, and I know I'm mixing metric and English units, but whatever. You take 4 ounce, take a little jar, and then you take it in the lab, and you might or you might not stir it up, and you take 20 grams out, which 20 grams is not a lot. It's a little scoop, and then then you take that and you add water to it and stuff, and you shake it up and you add solvent or whatever, and you end up with just a little bit of liquid at the end. So there's a lot of uncertainty in that, and you haven't even gotten to analysis.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's true.
Sometimes it's like, and that's really why chemists are saying uncertainty is silly for us to worry about, because there's so much uncertainty that's happening before it ever gets to an instrument.
True. To circle back,
Yes.
continue with uncertainty, circling back, I guess, to have we ever shut down a lab? And I said potentially, because I think I'm involved in one right now. The level of uncertainty for me and for our job, I feel, comes from the actual ABs and the individuals that we work with. If I am going to, like with this lab, for example, whose last report I basically just copy and pasted and then added like 10 more things to, which is just rude. Am I a joke? I don't feel, I want to feel like I'm helping. Anyway, that's a whole other thing. But now that I've sent off this report with, the majority being repeats, it's no longer up to me what happens. And so when you're sitting in the laboratory at the end of your time there, you can say, this is what I suggest. I suggest you, for lack of a better term, get your ass in gear. Pardon my swearing, but you can either get your ass in gear
or not have to worry about it, because you're going to be out of business.
Right, exactly. And when it comes to my recommendation, I don't know what's going to happen with it. It's out of my hands up to that point, and that's not always a great feeling if you are someone who wants to know then and there what your future holds. I would not be necessarily happy on the receiving end of that news. Of course, I don't know if I'd let myself get to that point, but what do I know? I haven't had the luxury of being in their seats, and I don't necessarily want that part. If I'm being totally honest, I will do the lab tech stuff all day, but being the person in charge can be a little scary.
Agreed. So I know and agree, it's very difficult when you're assessing a lab and you're going, I don't think you can or should be in business anymore. Or if the AB says, if there's more than X repeats, we're going to pull their accreditation. None of them do that, to my knowledge, at this point, but they keep threatening on occasion. On one hand, I really like to have labs taken out of the program when they're wrong or they're bad or they're, but I don't want it to happen immediately. I want there to be some get your act together and chance to respond.
A redemption round, if you would.
Or something, it's like, let's not, because it makes it harder on us as assessors, right? If we go in and we know that the rules for this AB is if you have more than, if there more than half repeats, or more than 5, or, put a number on whatever rule, then when I hit 3, 4, 5, whatever, I'm ready to leave. I don't want to sit there for another day and a half. So I am thinking, okay, I'm wasting my time. to continue being here for 2 more days or whatever it is. And so it's not a fun situation. So we're kind of at a breaking point. We could.
That went so fast.
I know. We might look at doing, and I don't know how we could possibly have somebody come in and chat with us, because we're at 20 minutes when it's just the two of us saying more than hello.
I know. We'd have to have like an extra special, like long episode.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll still keep it to 20-ish minutes for now. I think that we went over some stuff, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Press
Bye.
subscribe and come back.